This week's episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is driven by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource with over 160 instructional videos, including everything that you need to take a 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for their free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast, episode 120. This week on the show, we're joined by Matt McCormick, freelance photographer who talks with us about telling stories, getting some time on the gun, and also about killing the unicorn buck. All right, welcome to the 120th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast. This week brought to you by Lifetime Decoys. Lifetime's patent-pending designs use PVC-coated steel cable to prevent rust and corrosion, allow virtually zero line memory while providing UV resistance, incredible strength, and durability. Unlike monofilament, steel cable won't coil up and tangle with the other lines because of excessive memory. Their swivels and clips are made with high-quality stainless steel, and aluminum ferrules are hydraulically pressed, providing unsurpassed strength. These materials combine to form the strongest, longest-lasting, most tangle-free decoy rigging equipment on the market today, and they're the only manufacturer who offers a 3-year warranty as well as a money-back satisfaction guarantee. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm your host, Josh Palm, and we're your online, on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out at hpoutdoors.com. Head over to social media. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're on Facebook, you can head over to our listeners group. Join a bunch of folks in there talking shop with my co-host, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's up?
A jet plane over Nevada once struck a mallard at an altitude of 21,000 feet. That's currently the highest recorded flight altitude of any duck that probably would not have been recorded if it didn't get hit by a plane.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. Is that real or is that also fake news that you've been perpetuating?
I believe it's real.
Okay. You find that all on your own?
I did not.
Oh.
I got it from the masked man that called me out on the Coca-Cola color.
Oh. So
I said, "You want to play that game? You throw some facts my way, son." And he did.
Ooh,
so.
Referred to him as son. Very, very aggressive on your part. Well, it sounds cool. That's an interesting, and I like that it's actually got a waterfowl slant to it this week. It's not like completely random. So, well done, masked man. I will tell you that one man that is not masked with us this week is Matt McCormick. He checks in from the great state of Montana, and Matt was kind enough to spend quite a bit of time with us talking about freelance photography, storytelling, being different. We get into a really great conversation with him, go down a couple different avenues with that, talk about, getting to hunt all over the world or in the country and the great places that he's been. And we talk a little bit about, snacks that are important in the field, talk about some deer hunting. We get into a lot with Matt. So great conversation with him this week. Before we get too far down the road, though, I do want to take a minute just to thank Gunner Kennel is engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind. The G1 Kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner Kennels in a category all its own. They're started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything that they do. Gunner's dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market because man's best friend is man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunnerkennels.com. Also to Eukanuba, out in the field, how you've prepared determines how you'll perform. With balanced fat and protein to support peak condition, Eukanuba premium performance dog food enhances strength, energy, and endurance. So when the pavement ends and the truck doors finally swing open, you and your dog are ready for anything. Strong, focused, ready for anything? That's a Eukanuba dog. And to Dunn Sporting Goods. Dunn's is a family-owned and operated business with 2 locations in Peabody, Missouri and Marion, Illinois. They've got over 60 years dedicated to providing the outdoorsman with the best deals on hunting and fishing gear. Check out their selection at shopduns.com. as well as check them out on Facebook and Instagram at Shop Duns for weekly specials and giveaways. They've also created a discount code for the listeners of our show. Check out the code HPO to save 10% on your next purchase. Some restrictions do apply. And also thank you this week to Adrenaline, the creators of The Finisher. Again, we say it all the time, but support the show, support the companies that support our show. You can head over to the HP Outdoors website, check out our discount page, find out how you can save some cash with a bunch of the companies that support us. So, all right, Dan. So we got past your useless knowledge of the week. What else you got for us? You got anything good going on? I know you guys are getting hit. What is this? Wednesday? Well, I guess we're in Wednesday now, but Tuesday night, midnight here, into Wednesday, and you're getting the old polar blast vortex again. Didn't we just have one of these like a week ago?
I don't know. Something that I really don't like is how they're naming like all these winter storms now, like they're hurricanes or something. It's like I don't understand it.
I believe they've named hurricanes for quite some time, but these non-hurricane events, I would agree with you. They're all. I mean, they got to put something in there to get the headlines.
It's annoying. Because they scare. It's like scare tactics, and never ends up being that. But anyway, it's supposed to high of 0 tomorrow. It's supposed to be negative whatever tonight, 9 or 15 or something. So I got the wood heat going, and I'll be
I've
good
seen
to go.
Some pretty brutal temperatures across the central part of the country with the wind chill factors this last couple of days. So hopefully, I mean, like today here in Virginia, they were forecasting 1 to 3 inches of snow. And the night before they forecasted that, my son's school announced they were going to close 2 hours early. So went and picked my son up today at 12:35, and there was literally no snow at all anywhere. And we did get about 3 inches this afternoon. So, of course, school is closed tomorrow. Just growing up in PA, it's just never get
a little bit different. Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to have negative 35 wind chill, and they close schools tomorrow. And
yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a kid get frostbite at the bus stop.
That's totally understandable. Totally understandable. But yeah, some of the negative
people's BMWs don't run real good in 3 inches of snow apparently, so they got to keep them in the garage.
Negative 60s, negative 70, whatever it was out in Wisconsin, and. Yeah, that's pretty chilly.
That's aggressive.
It's like negative 40. I'd kill a nighter in that. Get it?
I mean, I'd kill a nighter in anything.
Anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Great episode. Great episode
let's shift gears.
Today. Yep.
This is an interview that I just enjoyed because I think above all else, it was kind of just like talking with a buddy after after a hunt, or just kind of a recap of a season kind of thing. So we cover a lot of ground here and a lot of cool stuff, and enjoyed the conversation with Matt. So let's go ahead and get into that, and we'll welcome Matt McCormick to the show. All right, joining us this week is a guy that I met for the first time in 2014 when our show was just a brand new baby. I think we were like 6 or 7 episodes in at the time, and we met out at on the Eastern Shore of Maryland at the Waterfowl Festival there in Easton. Talked a little bit about the show, and I knew at that time that he was a sharp dude, and to see where he's gone from that point to now certainly is no surprise to me. So we're excited to welcome to the show this week Matt McCormick. Matt, what's up, man?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Doing great, man. Appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk shop a little bit. I'm excited to catch up with you. You've had a lot going on. And, I think one of the things that always makes me kind of smile a little bit inside is, guys online talk about, things of all kinds of different nature, right? And seeing people telling stories and all of this kind of stuff. And I think we talked a little bit about this same kind of thing when we had Ted Wells on a while back, but it's like half the people listening to our show probably have no idea how many stories that they've been told through your lens and through your optic and through, your work and things like that. So it's always exciting to like get guys like you on the show, pull the curtain back. And I bet you there's going to be a lot of guys that listen to this episode and be like, oh man, I didn't realize that, like, you know, he was involved with that, or that's really cool, or whatever it is. So for anybody out there that might not be familiar with you and your work and what you do, give us a little bit of background about yourself and kind of talk a little bit about some of the work that you got going on.
Yeah, of course. Well, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, I can't believe it's been that long since we first touched base out there in Easton. Gosh, It feels like I was sitting in Jim Pierce's carving room not all that long ago. Right. And it's been a while. There's been a lot that's happened. You guys are over 100 episodes now, huh?
Yeah. That's we made it that far.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So, you know, my name is Matt McCormick. I'm a freelance photographer based out of Bozeman, Montana. Do some work mostly in the outdoor space. Targeting waterfowl hunters in the waterfowl community. That's really the focus of my efforts. We get to do some fly fishing stuff. My wife, she has a pretty sweet gig to where we're able to get out and do some of that as well. But my main focus, my main passion is waterfowl hunting and telling those stories, because there's so many stories, right, that are out there, and everything from one single bird and how you worked him to get him in to the tradition of how you got into hunting, and then everything in between. So it's been a fun ride over the last handful of years to be able to go out and tell these stories, man. It's been really sweet.
Yeah, you know, when Josh and I talked about having you on, I was thinking, well, he just wants Matt on to talk to his wife about fly fishing, because he's getting into that, and she's a champ all around there. So I was kind of wondering about the angle there. But, you know, tell me about you know, where'd you grow up at, and where did your love for waterfowl start?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I was born and raised in Wisconsin. Grew up hunting public ducks with my dad. And, you know, once I got into high school, I remember distinctly, I was on a store set for Sportsman's Warehouse in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. And I heard a guy by the name of Scott Gale blow on a old Tim Grounds half-breed during the store set. And it just blew my mind that a guy could sound like that many geese all at once. I was a duck hunter, mostly a pass shooter, right? And it just blew my mind that he could do what he was doing on that half-breed. And so that was kind of the trigger to getting into more goose hunting. And that was in 2004, 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. And yeah, just kind of started picking it up since then. I bought a Big River Flock Talk. That was my first call. And I still recommend that call. I don't even know if they make it, but if they do make it, it's a great call for starting out. I mean, it's like $30. You know, it's a wood call. Now there's so many good calls on the wall, but that was my first one and my first short read, and it sounded like crap. And it just took some time, you know, but it was cool. I found I actually had a guy who kind of took me under his wing, taught me the ropes. And, you know, my dad, he taught me the skills I needed, the courage I needed, the strength I needed, the passion for going out and doing it. And then a guy by the name of Randy Southard kind of really took me under his wing and taught me the skills I needed, which kind of rounded out, you know, my arsenal. And yeah, seems like a long time ago, but not all that long ago, 15 years ago or so.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I think a lot of guys can probably look back in, you know, at a point in their life when it was kind of like a defining moment, and, you know, what sort of was their trigger. But I don't know if I've ever heard, I don't know if I've heard many people call it, you know, refer to it as much detail. So clearly that was one that would stuck with you pretty sharply. And it kind of got me thinking as you were just saying that. I'm like, okay, so you go from, you know, a guy who, you know, gets into the sport and gets hooked on calling and, you know, basically what you were just talking about. When did the light come on for you that you thought maybe this is something that I could do in some form or fashion as a career, and kind of, you know, shift your mindset to like, okay, I'm going to make my passion, you know, what I do every day. You know, cause I think a lot of guys out there have that dream of being able to do something day in and day out that they're truly passionate about. And for many of us, that's waterfowl related. But few actually get an opportunity to execute that dream and do it. And I think a lot of guys probably after they hear some of the places you get to go and the people that you get to hunt with and the stories that you get to tell would probably fit what you do into one of those kind of dream job type scenarios. So when did the light kind of come on for you, or was there like a moment, like a break where you were like, this is real now, like I can do this, and kind of made that decision to go after it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, but there never really was one defining moment, I don't think, because I just started building my skills as I went, right? Like without really any trajectory outside of becoming a better hunter. And that was my compass. I want to figure out how to do this really well. And so learning from Randy and him teaching me how to call and him teaching me how to hunt, and eventually starting to blow, contest calls and working directly with some guys like Saunders and some local guys, that kind of accelerated me just a little bit, right? And I was like, wow, this is really cool, but nobody makes money at this unless you win. And contest calling was, it's really challenging to win enough to make a living on it. So it's like, you got to figure out a different path, right? Yeah. Hunter Grounds can make a bunch of money, and he's incredible, like having Kyle Jones on there. But back when I was calling, you're fighting for second place for the most part, and second place doesn't pay bills. So it's interesting, the transition, because I went completely away, moved to Idaho and did a bunch of hunting down there. And then I would say in 2013, when I first got my internship at CCAT Creative, I'm now 24 or something at the time, something like that. I can't even remember. And, I think 25, I think that was when it was like, wow, this could actually be a really real thing. And there's this brand called Sika Gear out there that really spoke truly to me, and kind of what they were doing. They launched that waterfowl line, and CCAT was working for them. And so I ended up just kind of going out and taking some photos and doing some hunting, and one thing just after the other. Yeah. Well, it kind of just happened. Yeah. It was a lot of work, but it kind of just happened. It wasn't like I'm going to go do this and this is my goal.
Yeah.
It kind of happened.
Yeah. And sorry, Dan, I'm going to jump in here with a couple things. I think what you're talking about is just, a lot of guys can probably, that it's just the combination of like, great preparation and timing. It's like there's things that, you put yourself in a position to be, a great candidate to take advantage of opportunities when they came across your plate. Quick side note, when we met back in 2014, we exchanged contact information, and we must have passed it like electronically through the phone or whatever, because for whatever reason, I have your birthday on my Google Calendar every single year. So on July 9th, every year it tells me today's Matt McCormick's birthday. And I'm like, all right, man, happy birthday.
You never send me a happy birthday. What's up with that?
I didn't want you to think I was weird and like creepy. Like, how does this dude know? Like, but no, it's
funny.
July.
It was probably linked. It was probably linked to my Facebook account. And that was probably like back when Instagram wasn't really a thing, so you might not have had one of them, and all your contacts were synced through Facebook.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I it's just funny because every year I'm like, oh, there we go, it's Matt's birthday. So this year I'm sending it, and it won't be awkward.
I'll look forward to that.
But the other thing I wanted to mention or ask is, if let's say that that this wasn't the path that it ended up being, what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't, freelance, photographer these days? I mean, like before you got into that, where did you see kind of like your projection or your trajectory of life taking you?
Yeah. So I'd made a big switch, in careers, sometime in that same time frame that I had talked to Mark on the phone, and he had offered me, the internship and all of that, where I was kind of heading down the path of, I almost don't want to give away my secret because this opportunity is still out there for people.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
What I'll say is that there is a big need for guys to go out and document hunts on behalf of the client. So if you're going out and you're going on a guided hunt, you go out like a wedding photographer and take photos for the client and, figure out a way to cut in the guide service so they push sales your way. And that was kind of the direction I was going. And that was the idea that I had originally told Mark about that got the conversation rolling. And within 2 months, I was living in Bozeman out of a duffel bag.
Jeez. Either one of those would have been really fun though. Were you trying to go and do like backcountry filming or more waterfowls?
Well, I was living in Southern Idaho at the time, so naturally, my mind was going for who are the highest paying clients that could spend a little bit of money to, bring a photographer with so they can have a really nice coffee table book sitting at their house in their man cave, just like everybody has a wedding book that they show their family when they come into town, to show their friends when they come into town. Same thing. I went and spent $10,000 on this elk hunt in Montana, in Idaho, Nevada, wherever. This is the experience that I had. Hand over a book. They get to talk through it. A guy authentically documented the entire hunt. And that idea was one that I had came up with without talking to Mark, and then talking to Mark and learning about Sitka gear. That was their whole approach to everything, and still is to this day, is authentically documenting the real life of a hunter, right?
Mm-hmm. Man. So you went out there around 2013, 20 some years old. How long had you been doing photography?
So back to when I first learned, Randy, the guy that had, kind of taught me pretty much everything that I knew. He had told me I remember distinctly the field and everything we were set up in. And he had just bought a brand new Canon Rebel XTI, I think, the TI, one of the first Rebels. And he was telling me about it, and he's like, if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be to go out, buy a camera, and start taking pictures of these hunts, because you're going to forget them once you get to my age. And he was 36, 37 at the time, whatever, somewhere around there. It's like, I've had so many cool things happen, and I don't remember any of them. And I don't have anything to go back and look at. So his advice matched with my, kind of creative eye and willing to take on new challenges. I went out and bought a Canon XSI, which was the new one for that next year, and just started taking photos. Started with birds like everybody else.
Yeah, that's awesome. So cool. So now you're out here doing this on your own, and talk a little bit about just kind of how the industry has evolved, and not just Sitka gear, but there seems to be kind of a marketed shift in how content is relayed to the viewer and all of that kind of thing. I think every one of us listening to this show, and probably everyone on this phone call at some point, has had our wives say to us, something about having our phone stuck to our face too much and getting, all upset about that kind of stuff. But, the truth of it is, things that we love, waterfowl content, is accessible at my fingertips all the time. And all I got to do is like swipe down and it refreshes and there's more of it, right? Like, just talk a little bit about that and just how it comes, how you perceive it being on the end where you make your living, putting that content together and ensuring that, the stuff that you put out there is better than the next guy. Because, as we've talked about, like, there's, everybody's got a DSLR now, right? I mean, everyone's trying to, be the next guy. And then there's, a handful of people that have been at the forefront. And, I think a lot of guys would consider you in that group. And I know you inspire a lot of photographers out there with your work and, things like that. So I'm curious to get your optic as, kind of where that all pulls together. And I know that's a massive question with a lot to unpack right there, but, just sort of your optic on that, being on kind of that side of the table.
Yeah, you bet. First off, I think the main thing to not necessarily being better, the main thing to think about is being different, right? Like, as the competitive landscape grows, you need to find ways to stand out. That's what it's all about. For me, when I started taking photos at CCAT in 2013, it was easy to take different photos because nobody was taking them. So now, as we evolve through this digital age, more and more people are doing it. More and more people are having the appreciation of it and for it. And they want to document their hunts, right? They probably had a similar situation that I had, where it's like, we do all this rad stuff and we always forget to take photos or whatever. And, it's just way more about being different. You think back in the early 2000s of Field and Clay, they're making the 24/7 videos. That was the most different thing you've ever seen, right? And everybody loved it because of it. There was a lot of smash up videos like with foils and even grounds and those guys. And then there was this cinematic approach to telling a story, all the way from fixing Freddie's truck the day before they're going to leave to knocking on doors and eating food and having fun and laughing. And there's like this experience. And that was a really good starting point for us down the path we're on today, which is what I would all encompassing kind of toss it into the silo of community and community marketing. Like we decided social has allowed us to broaden our horizons as far as the community goes. And the community, it was just hard to keep in touch, right? And now you're able to do that and being different on the photography side, but just engulf and embracing the moment that you're in and knowing that cannot be replicated. That's the only thing that can't be replicated. The shots can be replicated, everything, but the people and the scenario and the hunting and the location, like that cannot be replicated ever again. So focusing on that, putting your effort into that and being different and having fun with it. And that's kind of just been my motto for this whole thing is if it stops being fun, then you shouldn't be doing it.
So when I have a question, kind of, I think Ted said the same thing. And if you talk to photographers, it's always like, create your own style and be different. And, of course, like learn the craft, get better with your camera and know exactly how you want to shoot. But when you're at a place where you're at in your career, are there any tips that would help you get better? What are you doing? Like something that I started doing recently is just looking on TV and like the BBC, like Frozen Earth or like Africa shows or whatever they are, like the really, really good, Natural Geographic and stuff like that, like those really awesome shots and seeing how they do it and trying to think of different angles or anything like that. Are there any tips that you have? Because a lot of guys might be like, okay, like I like this shot, but it's not really different, but it's kind of my style. How can they get better?
Yeah. I think if you focus too much on your style, you kind of soften the edge on it, right? Like if you focus too much on, is this my style? Is this not my style? I think you just go out and you shoot and let the photos determine your style. That's kind of the gig. What do you like? It's about your eye, not necessarily your mind. You kind of have to work backwards in that sense. And I think, following guys like Chase Jarvis and does a creative live thing and brings in some of the best photographers in the world and talks live on camera, or even his commercial work is incredible, or any of these guys that are at the top of their game, Travis Burke or Brian Grossenbacher or whoever, guys that have been doing it forever. You can really get inspired by them and just kind of find your own way. I would say, there's tips and stuff that you can definitely dial in on, but for the most part, if you want to get better, take more photos and learn. Mm-hmm. You got to learn your camera, learn the way that you shoot and how your lenses shoot, and use a tripod in the dark and just go for it. Shoot in the off season, keep shooting. I would recommend shooting in aperture priority. That's one thing that if I had one tip for anybody, it's learn how to shoot the camera in aperture priority. It'll save you a lot of time and hassle.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time in aperture priority for that same reason, just because it kind of dumbs it down for me on a lot of areas and a lot of things. But, a lot of guys, I think, get wrapped around the axle too, about, well, I need a camera and I need this and I need that. And, a lot of times they kind of overlook the fact that, you can get some really quality work done with your cell phone, and every one of them have that in the field with them every time, because there was a big period of my life where I would not bring the camera with me because it was just a hassle. Like, it was just too big, too bulky. I had a million other things going on. And I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to take photos, because the camera is just annoying. I've kind of turned the page on that part of my life, but with the way that cell phones have progressed, guys can get really quality content for their own purposes or whatever with their cell phone. And it always amazes me because we do a what is it, Dan? Monthly? The banner contest in the group?
Yeah, sometimes we mix it up and go twice a month, but usually monthly.
Yeah. So we do a photo contest, and it's just for fun. You pick a winner and we display it on our group, And it always amazes me once people are like, "Oh, that's an amazing shot. Like, what are your camera? Like, what's the lens?" And there's like iPhone 7 Plus or something, It's like
right.
But it goes to that point where it's not all about that equipment. It's about, capturing the experience and all of those sort of things.
Yeah, and telling a story, right? So, if you're in a really cool moment, and I've been kind of testing this out in, the small community that I've built, putting iPhone photos out there that are fairly low quality but help tell a story, and to see how people react to them. And it turns out, like, people are pretty stoked on them. They just want the story.
Yeah. So
as long as it helps tell that story, then the quality, unless you're trying to sell work or, I guess really just sell work. If you're trying to sell work, then the quality really matters. But, focusing on the story and what it tells, and, a sequence of photos, whatever story that tells, that'll help you. The quality of the camera and the quality of the lenses and all that make them prettier, but doesn't mean they're better.
So
that's my opinion.
Speaking of telling a story, I'm going to ask you to tell one for us here. I noticed here recently, I think, just here this evening, you posted a couple of photos on your Instagram feed. And I noticed one of them was of Dustin Jones, the 737 duck calls, when you guys were up there doing freelance honkers and stuff. And I saw he had a football, old pigskin in his hands. So I got to know, Dustin's a friend of the show, but can the dude throw a spiral? I got to know. He doesn't have to be out there, dropping dimes on people, but I want to make sure that our show's partnered up with dudes who can at least throw a spiral.
Yeah, I would question the partnership then, because
makes sense, right?
There wasn't much for spirals being thrown that day. It was cold, and we were throwing them with gloves on, but we were getting them to where they needed to be, and they got us warm, so that mattered. That's all that mattered at that point. Yeah. No,
all right. I'll accept that, I suppose. There's just days when you got to power through rough conditions, so I get it.
You got to do it. And, a high pressure system pushed through, and that particular day was just, they didn't fly till 11 o'clock or so, and you got to kill time. And we always bring a football out in the field, or at least try to. And naturally it goes flat, and at that point it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. The old deflate gate is not a big problem in the goose field, I don't think.
It's definitely not.
So Matt, why don't you talk about the freelance honkers trip a little bit? Just what you guys, who came up with that idea, and kind of how many entries you had. I know there were some hilarious videos that people put in there, but maybe speak to that whole idea a little bit.
Yeah, I would be interested to hear what you guys thought of it from your end before you hear what went on.
I thought it was hilarious. Like the video submissions that people put in there, there's some you expect just the normal, hi, my name is Frank and I'd really like to go up. But there were some very creative, just energized videos that showed up. And I was cracking up laughing. So I thought it was a cool idea. And then, you guys put in the hard work up there to get them on birds and had a great trip. So it all seemed like it was on the up and up for sure.
Yeah, I think the one thing too, like that when I saw the video and it's and I was like, all right, a couple things. One, I can't imagine how many videos they're going to have to sift through. I'm like, these dudes are going to spend some time watching, people in their basement or people in their garage, whatever, just doing whatever. So I was like, there's going to be some videos that never see the light of day that are probably going to be pretty amazing. The other thing was, I'm like, the one thing that I've learned about waterfowlers and, the whole social media experience is that, like, a lot of times the dudes that I've met on social media that I've been cool with and like I've had conversations with, when I meet them in person, it's like I've known them forever. It's like they're one of my buddies. And it's that's something that, has been kind of a new experience for me with social media, because in the past, you'd show up to a field and it'd be like, oh yeah, this is my buddy's buddy or whatever. And they're like, it's cool, but like, you don't really have a sense of like who everybody is, through social media, you get a chance to talk, you get a chance to see what kind of stuff they're posting, so you get like a better feel for like when you show up, it's like, just like you're talking about, like you guys are going to come in and be part of the crew, we're going to do the things that we do and get after them. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And I have no doubt that, it was probably a pretty seamless integration when they got there and you guys just hit the ground running.
Yeah, that was definitely the case. The guys we picked they fit perfectly, and that's kind of what you're going for on a situation like that, right? But it was all based on, so going back to the idea, the idea was all based around community, and how do we kind of break down some of these walls that build for whatever reason, and let people into our group, let people into some fun and a unique experience that they'll be able to live with forever, right? Like that's what social media should be all about, is helping build this community that we call hunting, or, even diving further to the waterfowl community. And so it started out, I'll give a little bit of a backstory. It started out and it was an idea that I had because I needed people to take photos of. Brady and I wanted to do this trip, but none of our buddies could do it because of the timing. It was like right between Christmas and New Year's, right? So like they had a tough time with timing. So it was just the two of us. Like, what if we just invite a couple guys and then send it out there to Instagram and see if anybody wants to come with us? And so the original idea was that I came up with on a Thursday. It's important later on. And, was to bring in more people that I could take photos of. Ultimately this is a sick of photo trip, and I want to take photos of guys who are going to have a ton of fun. And the majority of our guys were all busy. So we invited Dustin from 737. Love that guy. Have spent a lot of time with him. Invited our buddy Dustin Tetrell, who's a local guy here, not even on Instagram, but you would know his face if you've seen him. He's definitely featured in a lot of Sika-esque stuff. And then so we sent it out to the world, and we recorded it, or I thought of the idea on Thursday. We recorded it on Friday after hours at Sika Gear, and didn't really even tell them that we were going to do it. And we just decided it needed to happen, and we're going to do it for ourselves regardless. So we went into Sika HQ. We recorded this thing on Friday night and then distributed it on Saturday. And then I kind of talked to Ryan about it. I'm like, hey, yeah, this thing is going on, just so you know. He's like, yeah, I saw it. It looks really awesome. We should do more with it. So what I was thinking was, if I would have brought them in on the front end, it might have got railroaded, right? They might have wanted to maybe overthink it or try to do something more than what it needed to be. And bringing them in after, they just kind of thought it was awesome and ended up sharing it, which wasn't anticipated. And we had, our goal was 20 entries in 1 week, and we had 53 entries in a week. They kind of started slow and then ramped up in a big push at the end. And the funny thing is there's so many people that have reached out that said it was just awesome, right? They'd never followed a hashtag gallery until then, and they're refreshing it every day, or 5 times a day, or 10 times a day, just to see what kind of crazy things somebody would come up with. And it was really cool that people actually did it. It was really fun. And the hunting was good, and that was a little bit anticipated. It was kind of, we were going to this spot because we knew there was birds there. And But it was a total freelance game, knocking on doors, getting turned down. It was a ton of fun. That's our style of hunting. Trafficking big Canada's late season, and having to work for it a little bit.
Yeah, I know let me see. Well, that time period, I was supposed to go to 737 and then for a day, and then head up to FowlCo, and then a couple other guys got joined up to FowlCo, and they changed the date to where I couldn't go with Dustin. He's like, "Oh man, I see, and then he goes, "Well, I'm heading up to Montana," and I was like, "Oh, I'm sure you're real sad about going hunting with Matt and Brady up there," but he's like, "No, I'm not sad at all." I was like, "I didn't think so." So that worked out well, all that, but yeah, it was definitely fun following that. I think people are still tagging freelance honkers because I see that show up in my feed all the time.
Isn't it funny that you followed that hashtag? I don't know how many hashtag galleries you follow. I follow very few, but that is one of the few that I follow. I mean, I was kind of behind it, but I feel like people caught on, and we found a hashtag that didn't have any posts on it. And yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think we should do this again? Is this a cool idea to help strengthen the community? What would be a neat idea to keep this thing running? We've had a lot of people hoping we're going to do it again.
I think it's a great idea. And even, one thing that Ramsey Russell said when we had him on here, no matter where you're at around the world, once you get in a duck blind or a goose field, you're goose hunters and duck hunters. You could be from all walks of life, and when you share time in the field, like, you could be best friend with a guy and not even know it. So I think it's a great idea, and it was successful right off the bat. I don't see a reason not to do it again.
Yeah, I think it's cool for a couple of reasons. Kind of like you, Matt. I never was big on following hashtag galleries. I started doing it when we kind of started, hashtagging some things and sort of tracking that. But I've started doing it more frequently because you just never know what somebody's going to randomly post to that hashtag, and it just brings a whole new element into my Instagram feed, which is pretty cool. So and in fact, I'm not even sure that I knew you could do it. I knew you could search hashtags. I didn't know that you could follow them, which, maybe somebody else out there doesn't know that. I don't know, but I thought that was really cool. What I think would be sweet would be, and this is kind of building off something I recently was able to participate in the Beretta Torture Tour stop up in Maryland, and they had Sam Soholt and Sierra Langbell and Brad Heidel from the Delta Waterfowl coming out, and some of them had never been to the East Coast to duck hunt, and it was kind of cool because I'm like, well, this is my backyard, this is where I hunt all the time, this is kind of seeing people come into what you are comfortable and what as your norm, and come and do that for the first time is a really cool experience to see how other people sort of how they relate to the experience that you have all the time. So it'd be cool to see that where you see I don't know if it's you guys going somewhere or whatever, but where the shoe's on the other foot. It's okay, you guys, they put in submissions and you say, all right, we're coming to hunt with you, and you go there and they get you set up on hunts and see how it goes and all that kind of stuff. And it's hunting. It'd be a big risk because you're not going to a place where if there's birds there or not. But it'd be just neat to see kind of, how that would work out.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. We actually talked about that, and there was a couple of guys that did submissions that we definitely would love to go hunting with them, like guys in Iowa. I want to go there and shoot them on golf courses. I think that's what they do there, right? That's one of the only places I know where it's it's a thing. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that do it, but I mean, that sounds really fun. Go, play a quick 9 and set up on the 9th green and let it happen for an evening shoot. I think it would be really fun. The idea is, we'll see what we come up with. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and we'll try to keep it going. Yeah,
it's definitely a thing on the East Coast where you got a lot more suburban sprawl and stuff like that. So golf, they do a lot of damage on golf courses. So we've got a lot of guys in our listeners group who hunt golf courses, and they're you gotta watch out. The first tee time comes through by 7:30, so you got to be you clean your birds out of the bunker and everything else before where they show
I mean,
up.
I'm really into that. I mean, I would love to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's cool. But I mean, ultimately, one thing that I've seen that's been very successful across the industry, and it happens all the time in our group, is when people who are in positions where they, work with companies like Sitka, or, Dustin with 737, or Ricky at Lifetime, like whatever the company is, like where they get an opportunity to interact with, I'm using air quotes here, your average guy. It's awesome to see when everybody realizes that, like, these folks, like you guys are just average dudes too. You guys hunt the same way. You're out there grinding just like everybody else does. It's just a cool experience to see everyone kind of like coming together and realize that, these are just normal. We get emails all the time of guys being like, man, I can't believe Garrett from Quack Quack was such a good dude, man. Like, he's so down to earth, like so cool, so laid back. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, you go to these industry shows and stuff like that. Like, every dude you walk up to at a booth is just down to earth, field and clay huddle and all that. That interview was so awesome that Dan got to do with them, because people got to see just like how genuine of people they are. And, world champions or not, like, those dudes are, are waterfowl killers and just good people to be around. So I love seeing that interaction play out where everyone kind of gets to experience that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that comes back to community, right? And social has allowed us to really humanize all of us. Before social was a thing, and there were these possibilities like podcasts or whatever to be able to get to know these people. They were just these brands hiding behind this logo, and they were they're standoffish, but not to their fault, but just because we didn't have an opportunity to really interact with them. And that leads me to kind of another thing that I help Sitka Gear with is helping build their community, and that's what it's all about, right? It's all about being there and developing strong relationships. Like, that's what it's all about, being, able to be there and be in the community and listen to and engage in real conversation with real hunters. And that kind of brings everybody together. And, Sitka or not, like, we're all in this for the same reason. And we all have that same starting point that we talked about earlier, which is some sort of mentor that got us in. And that was the reason that we started. Most of us all can distill it down to that one moment, and getting us all together. That's what it's all about.
Definitely breaking walls down, and again, that the freelance trip is. I'm excited to see what you have coming up with that. And thinking back, what I'm thinking about the Diverge contest, and the amount of work that goes into that. How cool is it to be on the judging end of it? And how many are there any tips that you would give to people that you're not looking for?
The Diverge contest is probably one of the coolest photo contests that there are and that there is today. And I think it is the coolest photo contest that there is, because the whole concept behind the entire thing is being different. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is you don't have to be better. You have to be, you should strive to be different and separate yourself. And so going through photos is actually fairly easy, because we see so many photos already. And we're kind of ingrained into that world where we see, for the most part, we see a high percentage of the best and what's new and what's different, because that's the world that we live in. All of those guys that are on that judging panel, that's the world they live in. Their job is to keep a watchful eye on the community and the photography and where it's going, and stay one step ahead. And so being different is everything. Show me a different angle, show me a different thing. And it's cool to see people actually coming up with new stuff, because like you mentioned earlier, everybody has a camera, and it's surprising that we can even find new ways to show the same thing. But today it keeps going, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of really, really good photographers out there. But like you said, like the hard thing is being different. It's like it's when it was funny because Sam made that post the other night about that macro shot that you had of the the blood droplet on the feather. And I mean, dude, he nailed that. That was so freaking spot on the way that he laid that out. It's like that image had such pop and caught your eye. It's like now that's a staple in everyone's like macro lineup. It's like, let me get the blood shot on the feather. It's like part of the shot list. And it's just amazing. And it's hard to get that out of your head. I mean, I don't know how guys like you that do this for your living, I don't know how you battle that. Like, cause for me, I like inadvertently do it. Like I'll see Dan take a picture and then the next like time I'm out in the field, I don't even realize it. And I've like framed up the same shot. I'm like, where did I see this before? Yep. I was just doing what Dan just
How do you feel
me.
about that, Dan?
Hey, I'll take it. He doesn't let me giggle on here anymore, so at least he can admit to following the shots. No, I'm just playing.
One team, one dream. That's where you're at.
Yeah. No, but I mean that that's like the sincerest form of flattery, right? I mean, it's like something that someone else is doing resonates with you so strongly that you don't realize that you're doing it. And like, for you guys, you like you said, you're around every day the best in the business. And it's like, how do you continue to push yourself to be different than that? And it's funny because like it happens that way in everything in a lot of areas. Like for example, I'll go hunt with a guide, let's say, and if he's blowing a goose call the way that I like the way that it sounds, and he's working a cadence that I like, I'm taking that cadence and I'm using it. And it's like for a couple weeks after I've hunted with that guy, I'm a better caller. And then I kind of forget what he sounded like and I go back to like my same old, kind of average self. So it's just like, it's just one of those things where it's, being around talented people elevates yourself and makes you better, but doesn't make you different. That's the challenge, right?
That is the challenge. Yep. And yeah, that's the hard part, but it's doable, and you can go out and buy new lenses. Everybody goes wide, go compress, and everybody's compressed, go wide. Everybody's wide, go wider. Everybody's standing up, lay down. Everybody's laying down, stand up. There's just these trends like a cash crop. Yeah. And that's part of learning.
Yeah.
Like you have to find inspiration and you have to learn. And that's all part of learning for everybody. And whether you're trying to be different or you're trying to figure out your style and do the thing, it's we're all learning in this together. So the more people do one thing or the more people try to be different, the better the competition is, the harder we have to work. And the better the content is. And we all win.
It's crazy because I think I said this to Dan last week or the week before, and I'm not even sure I said it on when we were recording, but I said it at some point. Being out there for the Torture Tour, getting to spend some time around the guys with Rockhouse and Aaron Hitchens and Matt White out there. You talk about creativity on another level. Like they're like, oh yeah, I wanted to try this, and I'm like, that's like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. That's something you wrote down like on a napkin, like when you were just like hanging out, it's like people with creative vision and creative mind is just an amazing thing. And it's, I definitely am envious of people that have that ability. And, it translates for me in waterfowl hunting, not just in photography. It's also in, so much you talk about, we hunt pressured geese or we hunt pressured ducks and, we're at the bottom of the flyway and they've seen everything by the time they get here. People find new and creative ways to be different and be successful in whatever it is that they do. And I just think that it's one of those things that in waterfowl hunting is tough to do because you're ingrained in, you set your decoys this way, or, you put your spinners here, you call the ducks this way, or, whatever it is. So it's like, it's all of that kind of balled into one, making it, something that's hard to kind of get out of that comfort zone and be different. And whether you're taking photos or whether you're trying to kill ducks, the same kind of rule applies. There's a lot of good duck hunters out there, but the ones that, are willing to be creative and be different are probably going to kill a few more than the other guys.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. Along those same lines, and we talk about this type of stuff all the time, but, do you see being different is something that we need to do, right? Everybody runs full bodies in the middle of the field. You move to the edge. Everybody sits on the edge. You move to the middle. It's the same sort of concept. But do you feel like there's any sort of gap in the market today as far as like over-the-counter offerings for decoys? Because, right now we're all kind of sitting with this cookie cutter set. Like, here's your starter kit for being a goose hunter or a duck hunter. And you go buy your decoys and you go buy your blinds and you go out there and you get in the middle of the field and you call the geese in. Do you feel like there's a gap in the offerings today? What's missing that we just don't have the opportunity to be different because we're limited by what we have access to?
I mean, it's a great question, and it's interesting that you say that because, immediately I'm like, no, we got silhouettes, we got full bodies, we got socks, we got flocked, we got stuffers, we got like all this stuff, but there's going to be products that come out to the market, every year that we're like, didn't think of that. That's kind of cool. Let me check that out. And that's the one thing that like we have talked about on this show that I love about the industry, whether you're a Sitka guy or you wear, Rogers camo or Drake or whatever it is, like companies that innovate, they push everybody to be better. And that happens in decoys and calls and camo and everything. So these companies that are pushing the envelope, that forces trickle down effect on everybody, which I love because, you do see, other sectors of the market elevating their game to bring better stuff to the field. So, I don't know, Dan, what do you think about the decoy? I mean, I'm sure you probably have a lot to weigh in on the diver decoy side of things, don't you, Dan?
Oh, definitely the divers. But I mean, I feel so sheltered here in PA. I mean, it's been a year and 3 months that it's legally allowed to have motion decoys. So, I mean, to think about more advancements than that, I'm kind of mind blown to even think about. But I mean, I have seen like the top down decoys that are just like flat and it looks like a view just from the top of them and they're easily stackable. I mean, there are people coming out with new products, and I think that will never end. And it's probably good because there'll be something that, he can always mix in or go full force with. But yeah, I mean, as far as the whole being different and, going small or going big or middle or side or whatever you're doing, I mean, that's all an option, and usually second guess yourself to the equation that you've put out in the field no matter what. So it's always, you could have stuffers that look exactly like it, right? And put those out and they might be lighter than the plastic geese like Field and Clay were talking about, and the field next to you might draw all the geese over. So who knows, man? That's the most realistic bird versus the carved plastic. So it's tough. And that's the fun part about hunting, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say you can't use motion decoys, and forgive me for not knowing this, but can you not use any battery-powered motion decoys or motion decoys at all?
Our first year was November of 2017, so we only had like a month and a half last year duck season where you could use a motorized decoy. So this was our first full season that we were capable of using one, and most of the time I was hunting out of state. But yeah, so before that you could use wind powered or like jerk rigs or anything like that, any kind of connection like that. But yeah, PA's behind the times a little bit.
So you guys are good to go, full on motion decoys now. Yeah,
motorized decoys were good to go, and it seems like they just okayed semi-auto rifles for big game. So that's a big jump here too. But,
nice.
Hey, let me ask you a question though. You're in the field a lot. You're on, you're making your living through photos, but you grew up with a love of waterfowl hunting, either duck hunting or goose hunting. How often do you get to pick up a gun, and do you even have a desire to pick up the gun when you're doing such great work with your camera.
Yeah. So when I'm on assignment, I rarely buy a license. I don't bring a gun, don't even buy a license, don't even tempt me, and just go out and focus on taking photos. Because if I have a license and I do have a gun, then inevitably I'm going to want to shoot it. So most of the time when I go on assignment, I don't bring a gun. Now, what I will say is the exception to that is I went to St. Paul Island a couple years ago, and shot a king eider. But the entire hunt was done, and this king came. I had a license, and this big Drake king comes in on the other side of the wave. We had giant rollers. I don't know if you ever read that story, that skip rope, but it was kind of a crazy experience. But it was 20-foot rollers, and they're decoying on this decoy string, but they're on the other side of the wave, and so you can't see them. And then you come up to the top, and you can see them down below, and then you go back down to the bottom, you can't see them anymore. And he was bringing that decoy string in, and this big Drake King was coming around and decoying perfectly, and those guys were done for the day. And so the guide actually gave me his gun when he came in, and I got to shoot a king. I wouldn't say I was hunting him. I was taking photos at the time, but I was able to shoot a king, and that was actually really awesome. And I did carry a license for that because I don't know if I'll ever go back.
Yeah.
And same with New Zealand. I didn't know if I'd ever go back. So I want to at least bring a gun and shoot a couple birds and say that I did it. But for the most part, go to Oklahoma, go to Kansas, go to Arkansas, go wherever. If it's on assignment, you're there to do one thing, and that's tell their story. And you just start throwing variables out there if you're carrying a gun and wanting to shoot it.
That all being said, I always have my federal duck stamp in my pocket in case I need to buy a license online, right?
Definitely
okay.
that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
I think you got to separate. So I get to pick up the gun a fair amount. All of my stuff in Montana, for the most part, I carry a gun. This is like my home. This is what I do. If I go on a freelance door knocking Canada goose hunt where we're going to go sit and lay out blinds out on an edge and finish geese, it's really hard for me not to carry a gun doing that. That's my thing. So it's kind of a toss up. I try to actually not do stuff like that outside of Montana or with my crew, because I can trust my crew that they're not going to get frustrated with the fact that I'm going to shoot. And everybody else, I'm just trying to tell their story, like not trying to throw any variables in.
So let me ask you a question that gets down to the real heart of the matter here. So does the snacks that you bring into the field differ, whether you're going to be running a gun or running the camera?
Yes. It differs.
Please explain.
I mean, of course it differs because when those guys are shooting, I'm taking photos, but I'm not running out to get burnt. I'm eating snacks,
right.
A lot more snacks.
So volume,
lots more snacks.
Volume is definitely a factor.
Oh, definitely. I just go more.
Yeah.
I kind of go with the same stuff because I know what I like, and I don't deviate too far from that most of the time in the goose field, unless you get a random roulette breakfast burrito from the underneath the hot light or something. But I usually go the route and try it out and see how it goes. It's 50-50 chance, but I'm into that.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Pop-Tart fan, and I notice a lot of people talking about Pop-Tarts, and I just don't. I go breakfast burrito every time over Pop-Tarts. Yeah. I don't know what. I don't know. It's not my thing.
I'm not team Pop-Tart either. I'm not. I can't do it.
A lot of people are.
Yeah, I mean, different strokes, but I like a good, I like something more based in, protein, carbohydrate mix versus, the heavy sugar intake. And that it just, it doesn't.
You're straight honey bun lover. What are you talking about?
Negative, Ghost Rider. I've made a stark shift in my snacking situation due to
diabetes.
Oh no, just adverse reactions to a lot of sugar in the morning. Just doesn't really sit well with your boy. So I've had to make a change.
Right.
Had to make a change.
Yeah, I'm savory. I mean, if Pop-Tart could figure out a way to put bacon and stuff inside of one of those tasty pastries, I'd be into something like that. But Otherwise, I'm going breakfast burrito every time, maybe 2 of them, and a lot of coffee. I gotta have coffee. I'm big into the coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, the Pop-Tarts. Wife bought Pop-Tarts for the kids the other day, and I snuck one, and I was just like, ugh, like not a big fan of it. But Matt, we're coming up on an hour. One last question for you.
No, I'm not done yet. I got a couple more.
Well,
I have a couple more.
Okay. Well, one on my end. You St. Paul, New Zealand. Where's the coolest place you've been waterfowling?
Oh, that is a extremely challenging question because it depends on the experience you're looking for. If you're looking for way out there, potentially dangerous adventure type hunting, St. Paul Island, no doubt. Go try it. Cost you some money. It's worth it. You don't need to do it twice. You'll get all you need one time. If you're looking for international travel, I thought New Zealand was really fun. I don't know if it's the best place. It's just one of the only places that I've been, where I had to fly 16 hours to get there. That was really fun. But honestly, sticking true to my roots and knowing that Canada's are the thing and greenheads make this world go round, like Nebraska. I'm sorry for everybody that lives in Nebraska, but honestly, I think Nebraska is some of the best hunting, if not the best hunting, in the lower 48, at least. And I have a ton of fun every time I go there, and they work, and the hides are good. You can hunt them on the edge. You can hunt them in the middle. You can hunt on big feeds. You can hunt on small feeds. They got hot water. It's really a special place, and people know about it, so I don't feel too bad. And it's a lot of private, right? So you got to know people, but it is a really special place. I think if I could choose, I would go there every year because I love the Western style of hunting, but it's kind of Western mixed with Midwestern. You kind of get a little bit of both. It's right on that fringe, and I like both sides of it. So, Nebraska, man, it's awesome.
Wow, that sounds.
Nice.
People from Nebraska are going to hate me for saying that.
Yeah, there's going to be some hate coming from that. So, all right. I wanted to ask really quickly. I'm going to ask 2 quick things and then another one following that. Because I thought about something.
So 3.
While you were talking about that, I thought about something that I meant to ask you and I hadn't done it yet.
3 singles.
This is a 3-pack coming your way.
Got a 3-pack of singles coming in from the left.
So you show up on a day where you're fun hunting. You're not on assignment. You're hunting big Canadas. What calls are hanging from the lanyard, and what shotgun are you rolling with?
Okay. So calls, I've been running the same calls. I have a lot of friends that run call companies, right? I've sat down with Field for, multiple hours. I think we sat down in their old shop for like 2 hours trying to figure out a way to get one of their calls to the way that I like it. And it just doesn't work. It's all based on mouth pressure or your mouth cavity size and how you open your jaw or don't open your jaw. You blow from the front or from the back. I just can't blow them. I think they're great. And I hear people blowing them. Like, those are awesome. I blow from my lanyard. I run a custom 2-drop. I run right now a Saunders Traffic, an original straight bore. I think I blow that call 95% of the time, if not more. I usually can figure out a way to get the birds to react to it. And on the other side, I will blow a number of different things, usually a Saunders GP or a Saunders Reload, or it's really just usually one of those 2. I did blow a zinc Call of Death this year, a wood one, a hedge one that I really liked. I put my own guts in it, but I thought it was great. So I run 2 calls, and if I blow a duck call, I vary. I've been blowing. Kyle sent me one of those Powers calls. I really like it. It's a double reed. We're usually hunting smaller water. It works for me, but I'm not a duck caller. I can kill ducks, but I'm definitely not a duck caller.
Yeah.
Goose stuff, Saunders. That's what I've always blown, and it's what works for me. It's what I learned on.
Yeah, that's cool. And how about shotgun? What's your choice there?
So I run all pumps.
Okay.
I've shot a lot of semi-autos, but I always end up.
I didn't see that coming.
The first shot, my idea is the first shot is always the best one, right? And whether it's a second too early or a second too late or right on the money, the first shot is going to be the best shot every single time. So what a pump allows me to do is slow down and focus on that first shot. That shot is the one that counts. Your second shot, it gets a little bit worse by the third shot. Unless they're in your face, in my opinion, the third shot's a Hail Mary. And I oftentimes don't send it. Sometimes I do, depending on the hunt. And so I run a pump, 870 for the most part on my 12. And then I run a BPS 10 gauge late in the season here in Montana.
Nice. Didn't see
So
that.
Josh, how do you feel about him not running it to the plug all the time?
Yeah, I'm not in that camp. I like to feel a recoil, so I run it to the plug typically.
You just send it all the way down there.
Pretty much.
I listen, I think it's great, and I always encourage people to shoot all three shots. I just personally don't do it very often.
Yeah. No, I honestly I like doing it when I can, but I don't do it as much as I wish I could, but
yeah. And we can only shoot 4 geese where I'm at here in Bozeman, 5 geese if you go to Central Flyway.
yeah.
You shoot 3 shots, and if they are in your face, that's one group. And depending on what you're hunting and how you're hunting and all of that, I might not want to burn out 3 of my 4 geese on this one flock.
Yeah,
I want to finish another one and keep shooting.
That's real talk here for the Atlantic Flyway starting next year. We're going to have some pretty good reductions in our seasons and bag limits in some parts of our flyway. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
What do you guys think about that? That whole shift to dropping to 2 mallards and dropping to 1 goose in certain areas. Have you guys been seeing? I just don't live there, so I'm genuinely curious. Have you guys been seeing a decrease in population in your areas? Does their decision reflect what your thoughts and ideas are on this whole thing?
Yeah, I'll let Dan chime in on this too. I suspect that his is probably similar to mine. I don't hunt a ton in the AP portion of the Atlantic Flyway. I do some, but not a lot. Most of that is when I'm up in Maryland on the Eastern Shore, and it's difficult for me to judge because that portion of the flyway has exponentially more birds than where I typically hunt. Most of our birds are migratory birds from different portions of the flyway or resident birds, and we have a lot. So, we have like a 10 bird early season limit per man in September. So we can shoot a lot of geese. Haven't had any problems shooting geese. I've personally not shot a bunch of mallards anyway. So for me, that isn't going to change a ton for me. I do more of my duck killing is diver ducks later in the year, and we just hunt geese more because that's what we have more of in general. So we hunt what we have. But the bigger thing that I'm struggling with is the reduction in the season length. Cutting that season to 30 days. For some states, Maryland and Pennsylvania, where you can't hunt on Sundays, I relate everything back to, my son. He's 7 years old, and every Saturday's got basketball or some other sporting event. So for him and I, our hunt time is on Sundays. And if we couldn't hunt Sundays, he would not be able to get out into the field other than just rare, school days where he has off, Martin Luther King, something like that, where we could go out in the field and hunt. So I worry about hunter retention and hunter recruitment when you cut the season length and not allowing guys to hunt 7 days a week, particularly on weekend. That just makes it really difficult for me. So I have a hard time with that more so than cutting the limit down, because you can shoot 2 mallards, but out here you could probably have a good shot at shooting a ringneck or 2, a black duck or 2. Later in the year, you're gonna see bluebills and redheads and cans and stuff like that as well. So you could put a bag limit together here in those areas that they're talking about. But you can't do it if you don't have the days to get out into the field. And that really for me is what I think is gonna is my biggest concern. I don't know how you feel about it, Dan.
I would say that, as far as up here in Northwest Pennsylvania, the AP zone is not very big compared to the other part of the state. So that isn't going to hurt too much because we hunt a lot of the RP zone anyways. And there's no reduction in that. So right now we can shoot five geese in the RP zone, which It's kind of crazy the way it's set up. But I think this past year is probably the most mallards I've seen around here in a long time. So for them to get cut back, it's kind of like, and I thought last year was a decent year with mallards too. So the last 2 years, it seems like last year wasn't as good as this year. This year seemed better than last year, and then we get cut back. So I know it's a small portion size of what they're looking at, and I don't know, but man, I saw some really, really nice flocks of mallards these last 2 years that I didn't see in previous years doing that. So I don't know. It's tough. I've seen a lot of more black ducks though. And then, you got the green-winged teal that stayed long, and our divers showed up early this year. So, you can still play around and have some good shoots for sure.
Certainly. Yeah, it's just fascinating to me. The numbers are actually pretty staggering if they're right, however right they are. I think, we were up last year. You guys were up last year, 7% or whatever. They still decided to cut it because they're down a lot over the last 3 years. It's just so that however they have that set up, you guys can still shoot. You still have a bag, like a normal bag limit of like 5 ducks or 6 ducks, only 2 of which could be mallards and 1 can be a hen. Is that how that works?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So you can still shoot, 3 wood ducks, 2 mallards, and a teal or something. You can still get that all together. And it seems, I think after this year, they're going to start running those estimates on more species of ducks. Is that right, Josh? Like five different species instead of just the mallard?
Yeah, I believe that is a change in philosophy that they're gonna go to. So.
It's crazy. It's just interesting how they're trying to manage those populations and figure out a way to get them to come back if they really are low. And I still spend a lot of time out there. So
yeah, and
drop to 1 goose is just crazy to me.
Yeah,
1 goose for 30 days.
Those AP zones for sure. Yeah, that really is nuts. And this really scary part about it is that they don't have a reason really why it's happening, and because of that, they really don't have an end game of when this will change. So, I mean, their outlook is 2 to 3 years before they start looking into bringing that number back. So I mean, and that's before they consider it because they don't know what's wrong. So.
Yeah, I saw a study or a flyover count of some sort that said 155,000 geese, and once they get to that number, they need to tone it down. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the number where you tone it back up, where you decide that's on the incline? It's just really interesting to me. I couldn't believe it when I saw that.
Yeah, right? I think one thing that has me a little bit concerned about this too is because there's so many people that have differing philosophies about how the resource should be managed, and what I'm seeing is a lot of, particularly this year across the country, a lot of tension being built up against, the DUs and the deltas of the world and, all of those sort of things. And wherever people sit on that is their prerogative. And I'm not here to argue one way or the other. But what I don't like seeing is it's just one more thing that's kind of being a divisive measure that's being driven in between, duck hunters in the community. And, I hate to see that because we've got enough people that, want to, not allow us to pursue that as it is. And I don't like seeing the community be divided over anything, let alone something like that, where we should be able to hopefully at least all agree that we want the end game to be the same. We want more ducks in the sky. We want more breeding pairs, and we want more, favorable habitat for nesting. But how we get there, we might have differing opinions on, but it just seems to kind of be sort of indicative of what we're seeing maybe across the entire country. It's hard. Everything's polarizing these days, and everyone, wants to dig in. But it's unfortunate, and I hope that here in the Atlantic Flyway, hopefully that they can do some studies to pinpoint maybe some of the issues because, like we were talking about the Eastern Shore of Maryland, there's a lot of guides up there. There's a lot, that area is steeped in waterfowl tradition, and Canada goose hunting there is a very, very big deal and a very deep rooted tradition. And, it was not that long ago, there was a moratorium there where you couldn't kill Canada geese, but it's hard to think about that now when we've had, 2 geese, and, most of the other places in the country, people look at that and they're like, 2 geese, I'm not getting out of bed to shoot 2 geese. Well, now, you got to get out of bed to shoot 1 goose, and, are people going to do that? And it worries me that less people are going to buy licenses, and there's going to be less funding going into the programs that are supported by that, and all of that ripple down, that effect that extrapolates out over a bunch of different things, could have detrimental impact that I fear, hopefully we don't, but.
Another big concern too, like when we were out in Kansas and Oklahoma, everyone's talking about how bad the lesser hatch was, and also the snows. So, you're seeing all white snows and not many juvies, and everyone's complaining about how difficult they are to hunt this year. So, it might be a wider thing than just the Atlantic Flyway if those guides are right.
Definitely. They had an ice storm push through, I believe, up on the snows that killed the hatch. I think that's what happened. At least I know that's what happened a few years ago, and I had heard that it was kind of a similar scenario, weather related, which bounces back. I think, nature's going to they're going to figure out a way to correct itself, and I don't think 2 geese is what's the culprit for that 1 extra goose. I don't think that's what's the culprit for a bad production year on Canada geese. So hopefully they can get that figured out.
Right.
Yeah. So
cool.
One other question I had for you is, we've talked a lot about waterfowl hunting, and, I was scrolling through your Instagram feed and I noticed, and I remembered seeing this when it happened too. You shot a slammer buck this year.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta ask. I mean, how does that rank? Because I grew up a whitetail and turkey hunter, and that's what I did for a long time growing up. And I didn't think there was anything else. And I started duck hunting. I'm like, whoa, this is my jam now. And now it's like I hardly ever deer hunt. And deer hunting for me is like, I pretty much hate it until there's like a deer in front of me, and I like that period of time where I interact with the deer and I take a shot or whatever is amazing, and the adrenaline's awesome. But then like I realized, well, I got to drag this thing out. Like I got to deal with all this crap now. So I'm like not loving this as much anymore. But I've never shot a buck like you did. I mean, that thing is a freaking stud. So you tell me, how does that stack up? And, I mean, how do you, does it make you just want to sit in a tree stand all the time now? Like what, how does it feel when you kill a deer of that magnitude compared to getting on, good honker shoots and things like that?
Yeah, totally different experience, totally different interaction with wildlife. I think goose hunting, if you ask me to go goose hunting, I'm going to go. Like I'm there. You ask me to go sit in the woods in November in a tree stand, I have recently, decided that that's something that I really enjoy. And
shooting bucks like that, I would say so.
Yeah, and it was even before bucks like that, but similar to so I was able, this year I've hunted archery more than any other year, and it actually cut into my waterfowl hunting, which is different for me. But I wanted to experience some other stuff, and we had a tough year here in Montana everybody did with the warm weather and everything. And so this was the year that I did some archery antelope hunting, did some archery elk hunting, and shot my first archery bull, and then went and spent a week in Ohio and then a week in Kansas. And it is just 0 to 100. And it's really fun to sit there and have no control over the situation. It's actually really a nice, maybe it's the change of pace, because so as you guys know, like being business owners and stuff, you always have to make decisions. You have to make them fast, and you have to do this thing. And that's what draws you to a lot of these hunting scenarios that you find yourself in, which are making quick decisions and being on your toes and adapting, reacting, and all of that. And whitetail hunting doesn't really allow you the opportunity to do anything except for sit there and hope they make it to you. There's some calculated risk and all that stuff that you figure out on the front end, but at the end of the day, you're sitting in this spot and you got to hope that deer walks up to you. And it's been a nice change of pace, I would say.
What did
that deer is awesome. Yeah. that particular buck, and so we haven't officially scored it. We green scored it right, between 175 and 180.
Ooh. I think I remember when you shot that. I think I texted Josh and I said, "Dude, McCormick just shot a unicorn." And Josh is very just brash with me, and he's like, "What do you mean he shot a unicorn? Like, just check out his feed, man." So,
yeah, he's a unicorn.
Awesome.
I mean, it comes right out of his nose, and that thing's 10 inches long. But it's an addition to what makes that buck impressive, because he's an old buck. He's at least 6.5. He's been just a ghost living under darkness, and for the last 4 years, he's had pictures of him for 3 years, and he's been on the property, and they've never had a single encounter with him. Travis never saw him in the summer, and I went and hunted with Travis this year, and he just had a gut feeling like we gotta get this buck, and all the stars aligned. It was really neat. I had to improvise a little bit and seize the moment. Ended up shooting him at 42 yards, but it was really cool.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I mean, that's a buck of a lifetime for sure. And
yeah,
it was cool because I remember when you posted that when you harvested it, and then recently you ran a couple of the clips and stuff back from that and on Instagram and stuff. And that's cool. And those are the things that that keep me coming back. Whether it's watching videos of birds cupped up over, or flashing back to a buck coming in or whatever. Those are the moments that we talk about capturing and stuff like that. And I think why there's so many opportunities for guys like you to go out and capture those moments and tell stories like that. So super cool, man, no doubt.
But I do want to tell you the coolest experience that I had out goose hunting. Kind of going back to that idea of watching birds cupped up, or something that gets your heart going. So many times in waterfowl hunting, I feel like we kind of get in the groove of things. And once you get in the groove, it's kind of happening the way you want it to happen. You can adapt and overcome, but you expect certain things and you're not always learning. And some people disagree with that, but I do believe that once you get to a certain point, every single moment you're out there, you're not learning. So when you put yourself into a new situation, you're learning all the time. And going and doing things for the first time has always been something that I've really enjoyed. And I've never gotten the type of rush that I got when I went to Oregon and hunted the Willamette Valley with Brad Cochran and Dave Smith and Matt Brimmer, watching huge flocks of cacklers, side shooting them on the swing, and actually targeting callers and trying to do that. And that was just a really, really impressive adrenaline rush that I haven't found a way to replicate yet.
I can't hardly imagine picking out collars. Man, that's crazy.
It was so fun. Like, you're sitting there and you're hunting the edge and you're shooting them on the swing, and you always get the sun right. They always put the sun right, and they put the decoys out 150 yards, 120 yards, and let those birds swing just like lessers do. Big swings and big flocks. And you're just watching necks just go by and go by and go by, and they're fast because they're super small. And you're just waiting and waiting and waiting with your hand on the gun, ready to put the safety off, just ready to pop up if you see one and take advantage of the opportunity, because you don't get opportunities. And so if you do get one, you have to jump on it instantly. And I've just never found a type of waterfowl hunting that has provided me that type of, just adrenaline and anxiety a little bit.
So I listened to a couple of their podcasts, and didn't they have regulations on like when they could shoot the bands, or it was kind of frowned upon to shoot callers?
Yeah. And I mean, you can read articles and to listen to those guys, and they know it way better than we do. I kind of just took some time to spend a day in their life, but it is definitely frowned upon because they're used for collar hunting itself is used for visual identification and the nesting grounds, right? So the biologist can look across and they can see the birds and they can record them and they can watch them without harassing them. And so if you're targeting them, then you're killing a lot of that. But on the other side, I see it from their perspective that it adds a whole new unique element to hunting that provides this challenge that, is that you can't replicate. And, it's kind of unique to certain areas around the world. Where we live is not one of them. So it was really cool to go over there and, not only have to identify all these different species in the area, they already have to do it because you have to take that identification test where you can know which birds you're looking at. There's 7 different subspecies. And so you take this huge identification test before they even give you a license. And then these big flocks come in and you have to be able to pick out which ones are which because you can only shoot 1 of this and 2 of this and none of this and 4 of this. And they're all flying together. So you're already studying the birds when they're on the wing. And so it just adds an additional unique element to that type of hunt where not only are you trying to decipher the different subspecies of goose that's in front of you and, relaying that or comparing that to what you have on the ground, you're also looking for something that sticks out of place. That could be a bright yellow collar, which is absolutely incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that's a complexity that I definitely didn't have an appreciation for. Wow. But I'll tell you right now, you put this redneck out there, I'm going to shoot some collars. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to at least try. I mean, there's no doubt.
I mean, there's not a single person. I mean, kudos to you if you can do this and restrain. But if a collar comes in and there's a person that says, "Oh, that's a collar, I better not shoot it," takes a special type of hunter. And I guess I'm just not there yet.
That's going to be a hunter that's going to watch me shoot.
Yeah. He's going to get to look at it for sure.
We're going to the plug on that one. No doubt.
Yeah, definitely. But that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And if anybody gets the opportunity to go, spend some time shooting cacklers or anything like that, I think by all means jump on it because it's special. Even taking the collar thing out of it, because now that project has been done for 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. So they're starting to get less and less and less. Going out there and being forced to identify the bird, much like shooting, your mallards and your hens and your drakes and all that, doing that with a white-cheeked Canada goose it's really cool. And it's complex and it's fun and it adds a whole new element to it.
That's awesome.
Wow, super cool. All right, man. Well, I tell you, we've kept you longer than I'd planned to, so I apologize for that. But I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. I know Dan tapped out a while ago. I'm tapped out. You got anything else for us, Matt?
I mean, we can keep talking. I got nothing going on. I can promise you that.
Yeah, it's always funny when we do this because it's 11:35 here on the East Coast. So
right?
I got.
So Josh, ask a couple of fly fishing questions. I know you got them. You've been talking about it all week.
No, I don't want it to get weird. I'm just. I'll send you a DM on that.
That sounds good. I'm happy to answer any fly fishing questions you have with my amateur ability and skill. But I do live with somebody that I was going to say, if I don't have the answer, she will.
I was going to say, I know you know where to get the answers if need be. And I think, my problem is I have,
here we go.
I have a million hobbies. I need another hobby. Like I need a hole in the head, but there's just something about fly fishing that I want to get more serious into. And I have that problem that I'm sure many people listening to us right now can relate to is I don't do anything like half-hearted. Like if I'm going to fly fish, brother, I'm going to fly fish. Like I'm going to get all the gear. I'm going to learn all the, I'm going to do the stuff. I'm going to do it right. And I'm just kind of like, I feel like there's a huge learning curve there. And I kind of feel like it almost when I started waterfowl hunting, it almost feels kind of the same way. And, a lot of our fishing here in Virginia is very technical. It's native brookies, small streams, super skittish, like just not easy to kind of like learn. I need to get out and like, some stalker pond and just like, slam, throw out a fly that looks like a food pellet and just slam trout
fish.
That's what I need to do. Instead, I'm like up here in this mountain stream, like slingshotting my dry fly up in this little, pool or whatever. So I think that's just probably the biggest challenge for me at this point is just getting, learning all these different casting techniques and all this kind of stuff. I mean, like, I swear I've watched more videos of Tom Rosenbauer teaching me how to cast than I care to admit at this point. But as I progress in my development, I'm sure I'll have more questions.
Of course. I don't even think you had one question in there, so I think we're good.
Yeah, I think I just kind of vented. Honestly, it was just sort of
it's all about practice. You got to learn the fundamentals and understand how it works. That's the biggest deal.
Yeah.
If you can remember back to your physics class and remember how a lever works, and once you get that down and understand the mechanics of a fly rod, you'll pick it up pretty quick. But it's a matter of practice. That's just what it comes down to, just like anything. You got to learn how to do it.
Yeah, that's just it. And it's just something to keep, I look forward to trying and getting my boy into, and, anything that we can do to get outdoors and do more stuff, I'm into it. So
it is so fun, and it's challenging, and it can be a more effective presentation to a feeding fish. It really can. A lot of times a panther martin is going to catch the trout, right? Like, they love to eat those panther martins. But there is times of the day and certain times of the year that flies are the way to do it. And to have that ability in your bag of tricks when you're out there on the water can be beneficial for sure. And we do it mostly now because you can figure out ways to get them to eat it, but we also go a lot of days where we don't catch anything. So that's fly fishing.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, I get so jealous when I, see you guys going on your trips and you guys going on your floats and stuff. I'm just like, oh man, that's the life. You guys got a sweet setup out there.
It's, we're pretty fortunate. Yeah. And, we didn't luck into it, but in a way we did. So it's been a lot of fun, and love living up here, but love getting into other people's lives and seeing why they love waterfowl hunting, because everybody's just a little bit different and does it a little different way. And it's just fun to tell that story and really just experience those different reasons why people love it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going on an hour and a half here, and I feel bad keeping you any longer. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, unless Dan's got something else that he likes to add. He likes to do these one last things at the very end and throw it in. So Dan, it's your last chance, brother. You got anything else from Matt you want to throw in here?
I was just going to say, I'm the Panther Martin kind of guy, and I usually throw a little red worm or a grub on the end of it. And if you miss the first hit, then they're coming back for more. And that's how I tag out there. So
that's how you tag out. Yeah, that's extremely effective. Yes, I can promise you that.
That's my one last thing.
Dan, aka Bill Dance over there, just dropping knowledge bombs. Very nice. Dropping knowledge. Well, anyway, Matt, again, thanks for joining us, man. We've enjoyed the conversation. Appreciate you giving so much time. And, we encourage everyone to check out your work on Instagram and on social. And, man, I'm looking forward to 2019 and seeing what else you guys get into up there.
Likewise, buddies. Thanks.
All right. Thanks again for Matt joining the show and giving us as much time as he did. And he was a trooper, man. He even bared with us on some technical difficulties before we started recording as we were trying to get everything set up. So really appreciate him, and definitely encourage everybody to check him out over on Instagram. A lot of great work, and a very, very talented dude. So enjoyed that chat, Dan.
Yeah, there aren't many people that I set up alerts for on social media stuff, but Matt's one of them. When he's posting stuff, just because, he does kind of a leader in the space, if you want to say that, and he just always taking really, really nice shots. So I'm a fan, and it was good to sit and talk to him for an hour and a half and kind of get his perspective on things.
For sure. All right, man. Well, this is episode's probably getting a little long at this point. So why don't we transition here to the end? You got one more thing you want to hit before we close up shop?
I think I always do that lip smack right before the end.
That's your move.
I'll tell you what, if you're looking for an audiobook or anything, and I showed it to you today, but David Goggins is a beast. He might be Superman, but anyway, if you want an inspirational / book to make you really driven to go out and change your life for the better. You Can't Hurt Me. Something like that.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah. Audiobooks are awesome. I like them for drives and things like that. It's like you sent me that today and I'm like, you have so much stimulus at work between work, audiobooks, social media, texting me. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like you have to be just exhausted when you leave the office.
I do. I am. It goes down.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, David Goggins Can't Hurt Me, and it's cool because it's not just a book being read. There's another guy that reads it as well, and then they will talk about a chapter. So, and then he has kind of like challenges throughout it. So it's almost like a podcast / audiobook, and it's really cool. It's a neat format. I'm really enjoying it. I think you should listen to it.
I may. I've got some time on my hands, so maybe I will just do that. We'll see.
It's a good one.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I don't got anything else this week, but before we go, just want to take a minute to thank again Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. It's the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource with over 160 instructional videos, including everything that you need to take a 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for their free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. All right, that does it for episode 120. Thank you to Matt McCormick for coming on and spending some time with us and shooting the breeze and having a good chat. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out all the past episodes, get caught up, and also leave 5-star ratings and reviews while you're there. Help other waterfowl hunters just like you find our program. Dan and I will be back next week with a brand new show. So until then, stay warm and take care.